Hi, I'm Laurel.
And I'm Riley, and this is Tallgrass After Dark.
Hello.
So,
that's our Josh fella.
That's our Josh, and this is the inaugural episode of Tallgrass After Dark. And Josh is joining us, great friend, has been for a while, and recently become colleague at Tallgrass. Josh's role here on the show is essentially to represent our non-lawyer viewers. Laurel and I can sometimes go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for our lawyer friends at home, he's going to be the reasonably prudent person.
Yes, the RPP, as we called them in law school. So Josh is here to help guide us through the conversations and questions that a lot of people want to talk about. But where Laurel and I start to veer off and chase legal rabbits and legalese, he's there to object and say, plain language, please.
He may actually throw a flag at the table. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we may give him a gavel to bang and shut us up and tell us to rephrase something so that it's actually understandable. We try really hard to describe estate planning in a way that's accessible to everyone, but there are times when, like, this is just the language we speak all day long. There was one time when we kind of got lost in it a little bit, and Josh is here to make sure that doesn't happen again. So,
I mean, and that doesn't mean I speak for every RPP out there.
That is the pressure we want you to put on yourself.
But that is the pressure.
Are you down with RPP, Josh?
I knew that was coming.
No, I'm sorry. You don't need to respond at all.
I knew it was coming.
Every listener has already responded.
I almost jumped in there myself with that. But
okay.
I mean, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for letting me be a part of this and being able to object. I like to object.
We trust your objection.
Thanks.
Your objections will almost always be sustained.
But really, this is about Tallgrass, so
yeah.
We wanted to make sure that you all are the ones talking, and I can just throw in some jabs every now and then, flags, and objections and stuff. But first episode, we really just kind of want to know. I say we, all the fans out there,
everyone, so many of
my
you,
my mom, you,
right.
That pretty much rounds it out.
My grandma.
Your grandma's going to
My grandma's totally going to listen to this.
They're going to be on.
I can think of a couple of our close followers who are probably going to be. I'm thinking about you, Robin, and Sue.
Well, anyway.
What up, Josh?
Yeah. And those several people want to know.
Mm-hmm.
What was how did this start?
Yeah. Why Tallgrass? Why?
Yeah. Why is it so weird?
Why is it weird? Why is it in your house? Why does Bruno run into client meetings and you're like, I like this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is different.
Intentionally.
Fair point.
And intentionally weird. So we're now in year 5 of Tallgrass. We started in March of 2016. I had been working for more traditional law firms at that point. And Laurel was 8 months pregnant with our son, Bruno. And most of the other male attorneys, especially that I knew, were happy. And this is not a criticism. It's just the reality of it. It's an observation. We're happy to have like their wife and children at home. And then they could, during the day, go and do their kind of grown-up office professional tasks.
Their lawyer work.
And then go home to the little lady and the kids. Fine. I just knew that as we were that close to the birth of our little boy, that I was not going to feel that way. I was really going to want to spend time with him and be at home. So what I said to Laurel was one day, just kind of on a whim, hey, what if I quit my job and I just start a stay-at-home dad law firm? And she said,
I am 8 months pregnant. That is terrifying. Because at the time, I was a civil litigation attorney. He was an estate planning attorney, but we were both working for somebody else. We knew what our income was. We knew what our budget was every month. And now he was suggesting working in a really radically different way and probably cutting our income in half. So one thing that I like to kind of tell people as they're trying to understand our dynamic, right, is that we are similar to a hot air balloon, right? And he is the
full of hot air
heart, right?
Yeah.
So he has the brilliant lift and ideas, and I am the ropes and the basket. And so we kind of need each other because without me, he would just float off into the ether. And without him, I would just kind of on the ground and flop there and do nothing. So he had this very exciting, interesting, terrifying idea. And me being the ropes in the basket, I said, okay, I see that you're excited about this. I need this to have a plan. I need us to know like how much we're thinking we're going to spend, how much we have before we need to kind of back out of the situation. What are the benchmarks that we're looking for? And if you can do all that for me, and you will go back to work for at least 2 weeks and make sure that you really feel this way, right? Because we have a tiny baby at home. Are you sure that you really want to come back and you want to work with this tiny baby all the time? I do tend to get
really excited about an idea, and then I get bored with it and just move on.
Right. Then I will support you. We will do this.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, it's really not an innovative thing to work from home. A lot of people do it. It's not common for attorneys to work from home in a way that means that their clients are also meeting with them there. There are some attorneys who will take administrative days and work from home, but if they're meeting with their clients or whatever else, they've got a conference room and an office and something that looks more traditional. So for us to say, I want to invite clients into our house, there's our baby, let's talk about stuff, is weird, right? Mm-hmm. That's not what was common. And most of the attorneys around us were saying, this is not going to work, guys. You're going to starve to death.
And at the time, really what we anticipated is probably there won't be a whole lot of people that want to work in this kind of non-traditional way, but maybe enough people will want to work with us that if I'm still working my full-time job and you're getting those few people that do want to work with us, we're going to be able to make it.
Yeah. So I did go back to work. Turns out I did really want to be with my wife and child. So Laurel said,
like all the time, every day,
really
waking up and going to sleep.
Hated being away. Hated getting up, going to the office, waiting all day to come back. So Laurel said, yeah, let's give it a go. And it was amazing. Had no idea what to expect. Even my optimism was stretched a bit. But we're blown away at the reception that we got. And it was due to a few different factors, but the reason we wanted to work weird was just to really prioritize each other and our children. And then to invite clients into that space.
Yeah. So I like how you framed it, working weird.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think it's pretty accurate, but not bad.
Yeah.
What were people saying? So you're going back to work at a firm and you're saying, my husband's going to start working from home. He's an attorney. I mean, were there any reactions?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was kind of like, oh, that's so sweet. You know, like, I'm sorry about that, but like, you're going to be okay. You're a good attorney, so you're going to pull it through, right? Well, Luna said no thanks.
Yeah.
She did not like people responding that way, first of all.
I kicked her under the table.
Oh, well, don't do that.
Well, I didn't mean to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come here, Luna. Come here.
So she's a frequent flyer in our client meetings as well.
Yes, she is.
But yeah. So.
And then for you, when you went, because he went back to work for 2 weeks, and then you went and you talked to your boss.
Terrified. He said, this is not going to work. You're going to starve to death, and I'll even offer you your job back. If you don't make it for very long, you can come back and work for me. The other thing is, like, there's this, the way that we work is not what you're taught to aspire to as a law student and as a young lawyer, right? Like, the goal is to make partner at the big firm, to have the corner office suite and, have your name on the sign and the marble columns and the downtown skyscraper law office. That's what you're supposed to want, right? Even the solo practitioners want to have kind of the trappings of what that law firm looks like. That kind of look, that's what you're supposed to shoot for. The idea that you would intentionally have a job and be on track to do that, and then step back and say, what if I just met with clients in my dining room? while my little boy was asleep in a car seat next to me and I'm rocking him while I'm talking to clients about long-term care planning. Right? That's not what your goal is supposed to be. So
And
some attorneys were like, I don't think this is going to work. And the attorneys that we went to law school with and that were just starting to work were looking at me like, why would you want this? This
and
is crazy.
and I would suggest that that is really kind of a symptom or because of what society teaches us success looks like. Right? Success looks like marble, it looks like high rises, it looks like stuff that you can see and touch. And it's less about how much time you're spending with the people you're choosing to spend it with. Um, and so that we were intentionally saying, we're not necessarily interested in, a marble columns situation. We're not necessarily hoping that our clients pay for parking. Seemed kind of like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Because you guys are pretty good at this. Maybe you could do that.
There's actually, so I hadn't planned on telling this story, but it's one that I tell often when this question comes up in conversation. And it was the moment that I felt like the light bulb went on over my head. I was reading this unrelated blog. It wasn't about law. And somebody told a story that I just call the little red boat story. But the story is that there's this fisherman in a little Mexican village, and he's got a little red boat. And every morning he paddles it out into the ocean and he catches some fish and he brings those fish back onto the beach and he lights a fire and he cooks a fish and his family comes around and they drink red wine and play guitar and sing songs and he goes to sleep and does it all again the next day. Right. So one day this American tourist is coming in and he sees him and he says, "Hey, I think if you got another boat, maybe hired a couple of guys and you both went out and then you went into the little village and you sold your fish, you could make some more money." So, okay, well, then what we do? Well, then maybe you'd take that money and you'd go get a loan or buy some more boats, maybe a larger boat, and hire some more fishermen, go out, catch more fish, go into the market, make some more money. Okay, then what we do? Well, then maybe you buy another boat on the other side of the another part of the ocean. You got multiple crews going out. Maybe you move your operations into Mexico City, and you sell more fish and you spread them out through different markets. Okay, then what we do? Well, then maybe you go international. Maybe you get your offices in Dallas or Chicago or New York City, and you got boats all over the world, catching fish, going to markets, making more money. Well, then what do I do? Well, then you retire to a little Mexican fishing village, and every day you go out in your boat and you catch a fish, and then you light a fire on the beach and drink wine with your family and play the guitar and sing songs. And the guy said, "Well, I can skip all of those steps then, because that's already the life I've got." Right. So for us, success was it looked like spending time with each other and with our kids, investing in family, being able to do work and be productive in our community, but prioritizing what mattered most to us, which was not the corner office. It was each other. And that's why we work weird,
Yeah.
because we wanted to redefine what we thought success looked like.
And then the other thing that we try to be honest about as we tell this story is that we anticipated that we would make it. We would just barely make it, and we would have each other and we would have our children, and that was enough. And we were so grateful for that. And as it happened, the way that we were working was interesting enough to people that they wanted to work with us, more people than we thought would want to work with us. So pretty quickly, I mean, initially he went out on his own, and we thought we're going to need to see, 6 months possibly. He's going to be able to like recoup what he was making. And then maybe by the time we're a year, maybe 18 months out, um, he'll be able to add even more. That's what we hoped, that it like if he had stayed at his job and he'd gotten those regular raises, he'd be there in about, a year to 18 months. That's what we thought. And as it happened, enough people wanted to work with us. We were so lucky that I needed to quit my job of civil litigation and come to work with him so that we could help work with all the clients that wanted to work with us.
And that even became like clients in multiple marketplaces. We expanded to Seattle. We brought in multiple attorneys. We had attorneys in Oklahoma City and Stillwater and Seattle and here in Tulsa, added support staff for the first time, all within the first couple of years of starting a weird law firm. Right. And I think part of that success came down to being very intentional about the story we were telling in our marketing. We were advised by some folks like, make sure people know that you're a legitimate law firm, right? So make your website look like other lawyers' websites, and your social media, put on the suit and sit in front of the books with the bookcase behind you, and that's your headshot. And I was just afraid that we would be setting up this expectation that people would be coming to that kind of a law firm and then pull into my driveway and turn around.
They'd be expecting marble columns and then see like
our little modest house,
stone
right?
pillars and be like,
so we instead decided from the get-go to tell the story of weird work. Right? There's pictures of me and my little boy in court with the judge. I remember one of my first posts on Instagram was I had to go to court in Rogers County. Bruno was awake. He wasn't napping in his car seat. I was talking to the judge. In the middle of my presentation on some probate matter, he threw up on my suit, right? And I've got this picture of me and the judge and Bruno smiling and throw up on my suit jacket. And I was like, that's what I want to portray. I'm telling people this is what it looks like to work the way that I do.
So that people were not surprised.
Yeah. And it was wonderful. I mean, they thought this is, it shouldn't be surprising looking back on it, but because it was so out of the norm, But people wanted to work with other folks who prioritized the things that also mattered to them, their kids, their spouse. Yeah.
And part of our hope was because, when we talk to people about like, why do you work out of your home? I mean, Josh, you're not the first person to ask. Many clients kind of sit down and they look around and they're like, wow, so why'd you do this? In a very, kind, just curious kind of way. And in addition to Riley wanting to work with family and stay closer to family, some of the stories that he had come back with from his estate planning clients, the really tragic tales were places where people were kind of younger and they didn't know about estate planning. It didn't seem important to them yet. And so they hadn't done anything. And then life happened and there was nothing in place. And it made a moment of intense crisis and tragedy much harder than it had to be. And so part of what we thought as we were doing this is, if we make it so that if you have kids, you can bring your kids. You don't necessarily need to pay for parking. You can just come to our house and we'll have this conversation together in our office. And then your kids will play with our kids and we can get you this information. And then you can plan however you want to plan.
Or if you belong to a community of individuals that doesn't always feel welcome in some places, same-sex couples and transgender individuals and Black and brown folks and religious minorities in a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma, like atheists and humanists or like Muslims, right? Like this is a place where we're intentionally trying to do something out of the norm. So this is a place where you automatically feel a little bit more welcome. And we can help your community, which is traditionally very underserved in estate planning, avoid a lot of the problems that you sometimes get stuck in.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in here and just kind of talk about how we're going to be able to get into a lot of this stuff. Hopefully, it's not the only episode. And because I want to break down so many things that you all have said, like around one, like who is estate planning normally for?
What even is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
Oh, like what happens when Prairie or Bruno run into the conference room during a client meeting? I mean, all those crazy things that go on. I want to break that down and be able to talk in depth about them. But as a pilot episode, it would be cool to kind of know why a podcast and why are we putting ourselves through this? Like, and what do we hope that people will take away? I mean, it's not the expectations. I mean, we might have the expectation that we're just cool and fun to listen to, and I mean, people are just going to tune in for whatever, and
at least I am,
and get a laugh, right? But when they're listening, and we hope that people will listen, it's like what do you hope they'll snatch onto and take away? And it could be a number of things.
Yeah.
But why a podcast? I mean, obviously it fits in working weird,
Mm-hmm.
but talk more about that.
Do you have a place you want to start? I've got a few ideas, but I don't want to.
You don't want to take all of the
I don't
ideas
want to take
out of my
all of
head
the
and
ideas out of
pretend
your
that they
head.
were
Yeah.
your own.
Right.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So as I mentioned, I'm the ropes in the basket,
Just
right?
say it well. If you're going to
And
say it well.
you don't ask for much.
Don't
babe.
mess it up.
So anyway, I would just say that when I'm considering expending the time and the energy to do something, I want to make sure it's going to actually accomplish something. And what I was hoping that this podcast would accomplish is one, Tallgrass's overarching goal, which is, hey, let you know that estate planning is for everybody, like every single person, no matter if you have just a house or not a house or a huge, gigantic house, like
Or just your body and a bunch of debt.
everybody needs estate planning. It's
Yeah.
going to look different depending on who you are, but you need it still. And I hope that as we sit here in our kind of hopefully not intimidating, approachable way, talk about estate planning, that you maybe get a little bit of information, that you feel like if you want to ask us a question, you absolutely can, and we will talk about it. We will answer you. That's really what I'm hoping for, is that you feel like estate planning can be for you, and that you learn about it, and that you feel like this is a safe place to ask questions if you have them.
My goal, and Laurel's too, but my goal from the very beginning, when it was just me starting this, was that I wanted what I do and estate planning itself to be as approachable as possible by every person. There shouldn't be anything about this that's intimidating. And in order to do that, you have to be a pretty good communicator.
Oh,
Well, I know, and I've really struggled. But communicate in a way that makes sense to the people you're trying to reach. I don't know whether or not, a video series and a podcast about this is going to be the most effective way to go about that. But it seems to me to be one meaningful tool among many to say to people, I want you to get to know us and our family and our home, so that these conversations about what can sometimes be thick, confusing issues related to navigating courts and tax law and everything else start to sound like the kind of conversation you're capable of having. So the more ways we can think of to communicate to people where they're at, Instagram stories and TikTok videos and podcasts and video series or whatever else, to just say, this shouldn't be an intimidating thing, the better. So this is just kind of an experiment. And is this a meaningful way to introduce ourselves to people and to communicate about the law in a way that makes it more approachable?
because estate planning, just that term, it can seem kind of intimidating. It
I
can
wish
seem
there
like
were a
lot,
better,
but
there are some people out there trying to get real clever with it, come up with different ways to talk about it. I mean, it is what it is. It's estate planning. That's what we're going to call it. But
at the end of the day, what it really is talking about what your concerns are, what your hopes are for the people that you care about, and making sure that your people have what they need to take care of you, and that whatever you have takes care of them the way that you want it to.
I was cruising the internet and came across LegalZoom's website and thought, this is much easier. I can just download some wills. I can download some stuff. And why would I need to go
Well, it
to
hurts
somebody's
me.
house? I know it hurts.
it's a good question and an important question. And you phrase it however you want to. Whenever
We're going.
he gives us the fun finger.
No, we're going.
This is going. All right,
That was how I phrased it.
That was how you
That
phrased
was
it.
excellent too. And
I thought it was great.
ruined it.
I wanted you to do that again, but now you don't have to.
I don't.
Do you have an answer you want to give first? Because I've got like 4. in
She's
my head.
reacting.
I just have like pain and hurt, but you should say words.
So I don't have pain and hurt. I feel like LegalZoom and Trust and Will and a few of those sites play an important purpose. There are people who are just not going to come to an estate planning attorney and pay for that expertise and get something that is going to work as well as it needs to.
But why? Okay, sorry.
And And
It's a free consultation. Just talk to us.
Yeah,
Carry on.
I agree that they should talk to us, but they're not going to. And those people have something, which in some cases is better than nothing. In many cases, it's not, but they're still not clogging up our calendar with consultations that are not going to go anywhere, right? Because they're just going to hear us and then say, well, how much do I got to pay for this? And I could have done this for $20 on LegalZoom. I'm done. And that's fine. So they play a purpose in like filtering out folks who would not be coming to see us, or even if they did, wouldn't hire us anyway. So cool. But the problem is that they don't know what they don't know. Nobody does. I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. It's why if I've got questions about something outside of my expertise, I go find the expert. What we see happen is that a lot of these DIY wills and trusts and powers of attorney try to get used, and they don't work how people wanted them to. And it's not their fault. They had a website that told them they were capable of drafting a legal document, and they paid the website to let them do it. But it's unfortunate that those kind of things get wound up in a lot of ongoing probate litigation or power of attorney conflicts, or they just don't allow people to do what they needed, what their loved one needed them to be able to do to really give them the help they needed.
Yeah. So what are some of the things?
Here's my struggle. Sorry to cut you off, but this is, well, I don't know if I will, but I have
things to say,
feelings, problems. Okay. And my problem is, I think that if all you do is go to one of those websites and then you fill out those forms, you come away with it with a sense of, phew, I've got myself covered. I've got what I need. And I just would really want, we are not the only probate estate planning attorneys in the city of Tulsa. There are several other probate estate planning attorneys, and we're great. You could just go talk to them. They don't charge for the initial consultation. You could just get information about, what your situation is and have that information, right?
Do you even need the will you paid for on LegalZoom?
Or like,
maybe not.
Hey, wow, that statutory power of attorney says that you have banking powers. Is that sufficient? Spoiler, it's maybe not, right? And my challenge is that people walk away from that situation feeling like, phew, okay, I've done what I needed to do. Everything's taken care of. And maybe they didn't get the advice that they needed to say, be more specific, maybe list more than one person. And so when those documents actually need to work, they don't. And so then now the family is in kind of a crisis moment with broken documents. And I just really want them to have the benefit of counsel.
Like, you don't know your documents aren't going to work while everything's going well. You only find that out in the crisis. And you don't know, you meaning kind of the non-estate planning attorney, you don't know the difference between a document that's going to work and not's going to work, and that won't work ahead of time. So it's just a whole lot of people that are heartbroken that come to see us when their loved one has become incapacitated, and nobody will accept the power of attorney that they've downloaded because it doesn't have the kind of language they need to actually accomplish what they should have known they needed to accomplish the whole time if they had got the right counsel.
Because, so when we do presentations for folks, we do kind of an illustration where we say, like, these are Pinterest fails, right? You can tell when a professional created this baked good, and you can tell when an amateur prepared this baked good, right? It doesn't look like Ariel anymore, is all I'm saying. And the thing is, when you are not an attorney or you're not a legal professional and you're looking at one document and it's called a power of attorney, and you're looking at a second document and it's called a power of attorney, they will look exactly the same to you. There's no reason that they shouldn't. But when you go to actually use that document, there might be a different effect. That financial institution may reject that document. And now we're in kind of a crisis moment, and we're having to go figure out a guardianship proceeding.
So,
and that's why when people say, like, oh, I just went to LegalZoom and I took care of it, it's like, I want you to take care of it. I want you to take care of it. I really, really do. I just don't want you to feel like you have taken care of it and you actually haven't.
So the one of the main problems we have to overcome is, an important role that LegalZoom plays in the marketplace is that it's less expensive than hiring an attorney. So a lot of what we've described so far can come across reasonably as really classist and privileged, right? Like, if you can't afford to pay a lawyer X number of thousands of dollars to knock out a revocable living trust, you just shouldn't have an estate plan. Like, that's not it. And it's part of the reason we've also developed another part of how we work at Tallgrass. Nobody leaves our office without getting their work done because they can't afford it.
Right.
There are all kinds of reasons somebody might not hire us, but it's never because they can't afford it. If somebody comes to us and they say, I need to get this done, I'm worried about trusting myself to go do a DIY will or a trust, but I need to get this service, Laurel and I just do it for them. We're not here to like nickel and dime a whole cascade of discounts. Like, here's how much you can pay us to do this. If you can't afford us, we'll make sure this gets done for you, because we would rather donate the work to you to get this done than have you go use your own legal knowledge or lack thereof to create your own attempt at an estate plan that's not actually going to do what you need it to do. So if attorneys, in my opinion, if attorneys like us are going to criticize that, we need to acknowledge that one of the important things about it to people is that it's cheap. And if we can't help them get what they need in a way they can afford, then we don't really have much room to criticize the services that are trying to meet that need.
But I will say, truthfully, in the city of Tulsa, there's an estate planning community of attorneys that I rely on, that I trust, and they are
Good
motivated in a similar fashion. And
Yeah.
so if somebody comes to them and they truly need a document,
I
we are all going to work with
I
you.
only know of a handful of attorneys that would essentially say, if you can't afford me, I'm not going to work with you.
Right.
Most of them, most of us would be willing to say, if you need it, we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So just talk.
Yeah, just talk to somebody. That's all I'm suggesting. For me to effectively say things, it's less about that.
Do you have a Riley's rant just ready to go to kind of give us the spirit of it? And just like,
do you?
I have a will twist.
Oh, well, can we maybe let the dog in before we get after it?
Yeah, let the dog in.
I let it out.
But we can do
Can
that.
you let it in?
What if I just say, this is LegalZoom?
Hey,
LegalZoom.
get it.
I was on the internet the other day and
I had these targeted advertisements and they seemed appropriate.
right, I know I need a will, and so I'm like, LegalZoom. I mean, it's right there. It's easy. Print it off. Done.
Oh,
I die. See,
he.
This podcast, right?
Oh, it hurts me.
this product.
It's pain.
LegalZoom. More bang for your buck.
Whoa, yes. So
like it.
loud.
Look at that guy.
Cool.
I'm in the corner for sure.
Losing your religion.
Losing my
That's me
religion.
in the corner.
That's me in the spot. Like legal zooming.
Should we pour this into a cup, or are we okay to like have the branded thing? Does that matter?
Corona. This is brought to you by Corona.
I don't think
Refresh.
Corona is going to find our podcast and be
Yeah,
like,
they're gonna call
what
us
are you
out.
doing?
Get that shit off
Yeah,
that table.
yes, that's anyway.
It's all right. They'll consult LegalZoom.
Dreaming big.
Yeah, they'll send us a cease and desist letter and be like, I don't think that's it.
All right.
The legal Zoom question, but we.
Let's do it.
yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's let
How do
you.
you want to ask it?
Just let me do it.
Okay.
Jesus. How you want to ask it?
Well,
We'll listen to that, then you can ask it.
I love this so much.
Ask it like 3 times
I'm
and I'll
very happy
choose
about
which
this.
one.
The question is, why would you all have done a podcast?
Yeah.
That's right.
These moments right here.
Yeah.
I didn't care what happens next.
That wasn't.
yeah,
no, it's not what
for
I
sure.
would say. But yeah, I mean, that's what you said.
That was one of the things you might have said. I don't know. I mean,
There are multiple reasons why everything.
the microphone breathing is one of them.
Look at Jesse.
I deserve
Aww.
all this worship.
So,
Yeah, you do. It's-
yeah.
Are you recording?
Record this audio, Jesse.
Oh, okay, good. Because
Look
you
at
can
him.
edit the shit out of it.
Oh,
It's good stuff.
his little wrinkled brow.
So,
It's hurting him.
the other
Stop.
day, though,
Stop.
Really fancy head.
The other
Oh,
day,
good.
though,